1 minute to the show.
1 minute till the show. Who's scratching at the door, Rocco or Gino?
That would be Gino.
Gino?
Yeah,
okay.
Big Gino.
The only thing you have to do is random share giveaway.
That's so random.
Keep it random. And you know what? I think I gave you the addresses last week for George Ackerman and Mark Ackerman. They both get stickers.
Okay.
And some other stuff. Actually, only one is supposed to get it, but because George Ackerman put me in touch with his brother, all this talk about my brother George, I feel like Liberace. But anyway, nobody's gonna even know what that means. So, random share giveaway, and that's that.
Okay. I'm on it.
And I might keep your eyes peeled. I might ask some questions there. See if we get some responses.
Okay.
Let me know what they might be saying, stuff like that. Okay?
Sure.
You're live.
Let's get down to the starting line. I'll tell you what you're going to see on the show tonight. And the next time, try this segment, we revisit a segment on ring gap, the Moto Showcase, a 1975 KX125. And here's the problem segment. We've got a few questions. What is it worth? A 1973 TM125. We've got all that and a whole lot more coming up on Vintage Motocross Q&A. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Obata. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you, Jordan, on the other end for helping me put the show together. Thank you, Jordan, Chelsea, and Susie. Thank you to viewers at home. As always, keep sharing the show, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. Comment Motion Pro. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're on Facebook, just keep sharing the show. A little bit later on, Susie will tell me who the most random share giveaway winner is, and we'll give away a nice sticker sheet like this, compliments of VINTCO.com. Our YouTube channel is going pretty well. You could always catch all of our shows that were there, all the ones for the past 3 years of Vintage Motocross Q&A, plus over 60 interviews. Go over there anytime you like, catch all the action. Don't forget to subscribe. When you do, you get a little alert just like this. A little alert just like this tells you when we're live on YouTube. How are the pros watching the show? How are the experts watching it? They're sitting back looking at their big screen TV, Susie. So they got the big screen TV while they're commenting on the phone. Great way to enjoy the show. As always, I want to thank our sponsors, VINTCO, Motion Pro, Preston Petty Products, Racer X, Full Circle Racing, the International Motocross Museum, and our newest sponsor, ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. We'll be talking more about them a little bit later on in the show. I want to talk to you tonight about the end gap on your rings. And what that means is your rings look like this on your piston. Of course, here's your piston. And right here at the end, and we can't get as close as we normally do with our AMSOIL B camera, but right here, there's a gap. And what that gap should be, and if Jordan is going to the next slide, you'll see it, sometimes it tightens up. The bore of the cylinder will make the ring pinch and it'll get together. What you want to avoid is, of course, having the ends of that ring actually touch each other. There should be a gap there called an E-gap or an end gap on your ring. If you look in the next slide, you'll see a picture of someone using a feeler gauge very, very similar to this right here. And what he's doing is he's putting that ring down inside the cylinder, down to where the pistons are hitting the wall through the stroke, not all the way at the top, not all the way at the bottom, but just down far enough. And he's putting that feeler gauge in there to make sure he's got the proper end gap in the ring. The proper end gap should be 4 thousandths per inch of bore that you have. We'll get into that in just a minute. In the next slide, you'll see a little machine. It's got a little hand crank thing. And what you could do, they sell this, it's very inexpensive. You can put the ring in there, and it's got a little grinding wheel, a little disc that will hit both sides of that ring as you crank it around. You could also do it, as Jordan probably, or hopefully is going to the next slide, you could also do it with a very, very fine file. A very fine file, you can do it through the ring, okay? The thing you want to be careful of is if there's a bevel or an angle on the ring, when you're filing it, you want to make sure you file it the same way that angle is going. Now, a rule of thumb, and it's more than a rule of thumb. If you have the bore in your bike, let's say it's 72 millimeter. 72 millimeter is about 3 inches. So you want to go 4 thousandths per inch on the clearance of the gap. So if you have a 72 millimeter bore in your bike, that's approximately 3 inches. You want to go 4 thousandths per inch. So you want to make sure that you have a clearance in between here of 12 thousandths, if that happens to be the size of your bike. If it's 72 millimeters, it might be 56 millimeter. It could be much smaller if you have a 50cc bike. But whatever it is, you want to use a feeler gauge like this. And this one I happen to actually have set at 12 thousandths. It's 4 thousandths per inch. It was a 72 millimeter bore, 3 inches approximately. So 12 thousandths. You want to make sure you do that next time you put a top end in your bike. And believe me, it's negligible how much. If you take off an extra thousandth or 2 thousandths, you're not going to lose any amount of compression that's going to be noticeable. What is noticeable is if you have those 2 points of that ring touching each other, when the piston and the rings expand, that's how you wind up with a seizure on your bike or doing damage to your cylinder. That's what you might want to try next time. Boy, those were the days. Amsoil was a sponsor and my hair was really black. But enough about me. In the Moto Showcase tonight, we take a look at a 1975 Kawasaki KX125. It was sent in by Terry Ellis of Fenton, Missouri. I saw this bike on Facebook the other day, and I actually contacted Terry and asked him if he wanted to put the bike on the show. He agreed, and it's kind of a short story, but kind of interesting. He said that he bought the bike from a fellow in Virginia in 2022. He built it for himself, the guy in Virginia, and he really wasn't interested in selling it, but Terry kind of rode him for a bit, and he did wind up selling him the bike for a reasonable price at that time. It's never had gas in it since the restoration. Everything on this bike is NOS, new old stock. Everything on the bike, with the exception of the plastic, which comes from Nightmare Racing, my friend Mark Hildebrand. And he doesn't believe that the handlebars, Terry Ellis doesn't believe that the handlebars are NOS. But everything else is. Some liberties were taken with the rims. I mean, they're a little shinier than they should be. They should be anodized silver, but they are the stock rims that were polished. And everything else, and you probably can't really see it through your screen, but everything that I saw on the bike did appear to be NOS or had an absolutely beautiful finish on it. All the little nuts and bolts and screws that were around the engine, the throttle, the cable, the grips are absolutely NOS. There's no question about that. So I want to thank Terry Ellis for sending. Look at that great pipe. Wow. You know, I've restored a couple of these, and this is just about as nice as anything I've ever restored. So great job to whoever restored it. Congratulations to Terry Ellis, who owns the bike. And Terry says the same way that he convinced the previous seller to sell the bike to him after some doing, he might be convinced to let that bike go. So if you're interested in a bike like that, contact Terry Ellis. Other than that, Terry Ellis, send me your mailing address. I'll get you a coffee cup, compliments of Preston Petty products at VintageMotocrossQ&A.com, or some stickers or whatever else you might like that we offer here on the show. Terry Ellis, Fenton, Missouri. Thanks so much. Beautiful. 75 KX 125. Preston Petty products. You know what their special is this week? They got a clock. They just came out with these things, this clock, and on it, it's got the sticker, which was only available at the Preston Petty Memorial. You could see the date on there of when Preston Petty was born and the year he passed on. Strangely enough, it was Preston Petty's birthday last Sunday, February 19th. But that's a beautiful clock to hang in your garage or in your house. $49.95. I happen to have one right here. This was the prototype. This was the original before they started putting clocks in them. This was the one that was made by, I think, Mike Murphy and Paul Stannard. They put it together. There it is. And I got Preston Petty's autograph on it too. And it runs on a battery. So you get a close look at that. It runs on a battery, so you don't have to worry about plugging it in any place. There you have it. $49 this week. $49.95 at Preston Petty Products. Don't forget, order all your Preston Petty products directly from Paul Stannard himself. PrestonPettyProducts.com. You're still looking for dealers. Get a hold of Paul. Great guy. And here's the problem segment tonight. We take a look at a few of the questions that you've sent in over the past week or so. Jordan, what do we have up first? Joe, this is from Steve Schultz. Any advice on removing older ball bearing races and replacing them with roller bearings? This question was a little bit longer than this, and there were some pictures involved. It was a 77 Honda CR125. And yes, on the top left there, you'll see what a standard set of ball bearings look like that you're going to find in the majority of your bikes. A lot of guys like to take those out and replace them with a tapered roller bearing set, just like you have right here. In the next picture, it's very, very easy to get them out. Shows it right here in the picture. You just take a big punch or some type of drive, and you can put it on an angle down through the head tube of your bike, and you can get them out easy enough. Don't be surprised if they break. They're probably old, they're probably brittle, they might be cracked already, but that is an easy way to get them out. Putting new ones back in after you've gone out and bought yourself a new set of roller bearings, tapered roller bearings, and those beautiful cages, or not cages, but the races that go with them. You want to be careful how you put them back in. Don't put them back in with a hammer. This is not one of those instances where you can either freeze the cup or the race or put it back in there after heating up the frame. You want to put it in with the right tool. The right tool looks like this, okay? Nice steering bearing installer. This is available from Motion Pro. This is a fabulous tool. I have it in my shop. I used it, and it looks, it's just a beautiful piece of, it's a beautiful tool. It really, really is. You know, like everything else they make, everything is either aluminum or an anodized steel or anodized aluminum in that beautiful blue. It's adjustable. You can move this little clip up here, up and down that shaft. So depending on what size head tube you have on your bike, you can get that in there, tighten this nut that's on top, and you can put those new bearing races in for your tapered roller bearings in safely and straight. So getting them out is not a problem. Getting them back in could be, but if you use that tool from Motion Pro, you'll get them back in the proper fashion. Let's say that. We've got a special coming up from Motion Pro in just a minute too, right after I get done with the next question. Mark Wallace, what adhesive would you suggest for installing a new seat foam to an aftermarket plastic seat base for a 77 Honda CR125? Yeah, this can be a problem. You know, when seat bases are made from the factory, they sometimes have those ribs in them or some detents in there, and people think that, well, it must be for some kind of design. It's not. It's to actually hold the seat foam in there, which is molded to the seat base. It's molded in there so that seat foam doesn't slip all over the place. Sometimes you'll see where they're actually glued in as well. But on aftermarket bases, like DC Plastic makes one, a few other guys make them too, and if they're a little bit more on the flat side, like on a Honda, you're not going to have those impressions in there. You're not going to have the new seat foam that has any indents in it that's going to hold it on there. So what you can use is this product right here, this 77 stuff from 3M. This stuff works great. It really, really adheres to the foam. You spray it on the base first, put your foam on there, then put your cover on. If you don't use this and that foam is slipping on that seat pan, you're going to ruin the cover. Either it's going to rip out from the rivet you're using to put in there, or if you have any kind of those alligator clips, what they call them? I had them on the show here one day. I think they're called, not alligator clips, they were called something else. They were like these little pointy tangs that rivet to the side of your seat. You stretch the seat around. If you don't have those, even if you do have those, if that foam is moving around on the seat base, you're going to wind up ripping that cover. So make sure the foam is real tight with an adhesive to the seat base before you put the new cover on. That's the way you want to do that. This stuff is great. The 77 stuff from 3M, who is not a sponsor. Bob S., a little mysterious, Bob S. Joe, love the photos and the videos of the Oakland Supercross event. How can I display my bikes at the Legends and Heroes display at a future event? Well, you could do that by contacting Frank Vredis. Frank Vredis is on Facebook. There he is all the way to the left, just to the left of Brock Glover. This was during the award ceremony in Houston, I believe it was. Oh, no, Tampa. It was in Tampa because Don Kadowski and Denise Kadowski are there, along with George Ackerman from the Moto Barn. Contact Frank Vredis. There he is all the way to the left, Vrettas. If you can't get a hold of him from Facebook or he's not responding, call me, and I will give you Frank's cell number, and then you can annoy him all day long by text. He'll appreciate that. Yeah, it's a great way to display your bike, and there's a lot of events coming up yet, and it's a fun way to be there and to be involved in the pits. You get to walk around there all day. Plus, for those of you who are fortunate enough to get a bike in that Legends and Heroes display, you get a pass to get you into the race that night. It's a really fun way to spend the day. I just did it last week at Oakland. It was great. Motion Pro, we were just talking about that great steering stem installation tool that they have available. They've got a lot of tools and a lot of cables and a lot of controls since 1984. They've got a special going on every week for the viewers of Vintage Motocross Q&A. When you go check out, you will get 20% off across the board on everything from Motion Pro. This week's code is MP2165. That's MP2165. When you check out at Motion Pro, put that code in, you'll get 20% off. The more you spend, the more you save at Motion Pro.
I'm Ron Lachine, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Sean Gager. We're here with Altus Motorsports. I'm Kevin Almeido's mechanic, bike number 16. We wanted to kind of show off the Motion Pro wrenches and all kinds of different tools that Motion Pro makes. You know, getting the job done, saving time is crucial, especially, you know, qualifying for trying to do a clutch change or anything like that. These speed wrenches are absolutely great to have. They make our lives absolutely way easier. Every single mechanic on the crew has many things in their toolbox, and we are very happy to have them on board.
In the What's It Worth segment tonight, we are going to be taking a look at a 1973 Suzuki TM125 that was sold on Bring a Trailer. BringATrailer.com is not associated with our show, and well, they're not associated with the show. That's all I can tell you. This is the segment of the show where I encourage you, the viewers at home, to put in what you think this bike recently sold for. I will tell you that it sold on January 20th, 2023. It is a 73 TM125. I will give you some of the details of it while Jordan goes through the slides. It's a beautiful looking bike. 73 Suzuki TM125K Challenger said to have been sold new at Roberts Suzuki in Downey, California, and was reportedly stored by the original seller, but unfortunately it was outside for over 25 years. A subsequent refurbishment completed in 2014 is said to have included a complete overhaul. The engine was overboard, the transmission was all rebuilt. It had a powder-coated frame, ancillary components, and black finishing, including the beautiful yellow and green and white graphics. Equipment includes an electronic ignition and upswept expansion chamber. It does have progressive shocks. It's got aluminum rims and knobby tires. The TM125 is now offered at a no reserve price. There is no title available for this motorcycle. Additional equipment includes, for the price that you buy it for, a side stand, some black vinyl upholstered solo saddle with a replacement seat pan, powder-coated airbox, and some ancillary components. Drum brakes at both ends work perfectly. Everything runs as it should. And he goes on a little bit with further description that seems rather generic. And I'm wondering on these Bring a Trailer advertisements, who exactly puts these ads together? Because some of them read like they're out of the back of a magazine. But anyway, it was a beautiful bike. The pictures are outstanding. All the hardware, everything was great about it. Yes, it did have some aftermarket shocks on it, but everything else looked fairly complete and really well done. 73 TM125. What do you think it sold for up there in Oregon? $8,000, $9,000. Bike sold for $8,529. And I'm sure that was a emotional purchase by somebody who back in 1973, when motocross was just starting to get traction here with the amateur scene here in America, somebody went out and bought that 73 TM 125. $8,529. Susie, if you could tell me who got closest without going over, maybe I'll send them something.
I'll tell you.
All right, you let me know whenever you want to do that. Hey, Jordan, is this also a good time to announce the random share giveaway winner, Jordan?
Sure.
Jordan.
Yeah, sure.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Random share giveaway winner. The random share giveaway winner is Jerry Riskin. Jerry Riskin, R-I-S-K-E-N. Jerry Riskin, you are tonight's Vintage Motocross Q&A random share giveaway winner. Get a hold of me. I will get you a sticker sheet like this. Compliments of VINTCO.com. VINTCO, keep the ride going. That last segment, of course, is brought to you by Full Circle Racing. Full Circle Racing has a great special going on. Just $50 a hub. Tom McAllister will powder coat and powder coat your hubs and the backing plate for just $50 a hub. The backing plate is just $10 more, and that's in a gloss black or a matte black finish. For a couple of bucks more, he'll make them any color you want. And I've got some right here in my shop that Tom has done for me. Beautiful job from Tom McAllister at FullCircleRacing.com. Thank you, Thomas. Don't forget, they've got that special going on for CZ backing plates yet, just $179. It's made out of 6061 aluminum. Tom makes them himself right up there in his shop. He's been doing that for over 20 years. If you don't want the logo on there, it's just $169. Did you know? This is a segment that was sent in to us by Jeff Kokoski this week. And did you know, or did you know why the monoshock was called the Decarbon Monocross suspension? A little bit of a lengthy story, but then again, Jeffrey's produced segments are a little bit lengthy, but they're always very, very informative, and I'm very, very grateful for Jeff that he does them. But anyway, did you know why the Yamaha called their single shock or rear suspension system the Decarbon Monocross suspension in the late 70s? And I always thought it was Decarbon too, but we're all going to learn something here in just a minute. Our story begins in the spring of 1973 when Yamaha unveiled their super secret monoshock arrangement on Håkan Andersson's YZM at the third round of the 250cc GP season in Belgium. Andersson scored a 3-1 victory that day, giving him the overall, and Yamaha sent the first shot into the world on long travel suspension. But late summer, Andersson and the monoshock had dominated the GP series and gave Yamaha their first ever world championship, catching all the manufacturers off guard with this unique suspension setup. Over the ensuing winter, the suspension revolution had begun. In 75, Yamaha had incorporated their monoshock design on all their larger displacement YZs and MX production bikes found on the dealer showroom floors. And that year, also, the MX manufacturers released their long travel bikes, and there was a lot of variations of what was going on, from Mako moving up shocks to certain manufacturers laying down shocks, and CZ trying to catch up as well. In 75 and 76, the original production monoshock incorporated a bulbous-looking accumulator chamber at the end of the shock. You can see it right up there in the picture at the top of the page. Anyway, the chamber was filled with nitrogen gas, and it's separated from the oil in the main shock body by an internal bladder. The nitrogen helped to maintain constant pressure inside the shock to prevent foaming and cavitation of the oil. Beginning with the 77 YZ production models, Yamaha did away with this accumulator, lengthened the shock body to accommodate the nitrogen gas, which was now separated from the shock and oil by a sealed free-floating piston detached from the main shock piston, which was attached on a damper rod. The new design was unveiled as the Decarbon Monocross suspension system. What does the term Decarbon mean? Hint, it has nothing to do with element number 6 in the periodic table or climate change. The modern hydraulic shock absorber was invented by Frenchman Maurice Hoodies in 1907. Although it is called a shock absorber, it doesn't really absorb any shock. The oil and valving inside the shock actually absorb the excessive energy exerted by the suspension's springs, be it leaf or coil. This dampens the oscillation of the spring to keep the vehicle from being a runaway pogo stick and bouncing all over the place. Hoodies' original design was known as a two-tube or twin-tube shock absorber and consisted of two nested telescopic cylindrical tubes. The inner tube was called the working tube or the pressure tube, with the outer tube being called the reserve tube. At the bottom of this device inside the working tube was a compression valve or base valve. When the shock piston was forced up or down, the shock's hydraulic fluid would move between the two nested chambers via orifices in the piston and base valve, thus converting the spring's energy into heat, which is then dissipated through the oil in the shock body. With the advent of direct gas charging to the shock to reduce foaming and cavitation of the oil, Hoodie's original concept is still the predominant design used in modern-day vehicle suspension systems today. However, in 1953, another Frenchman, Christian Boussier de Carbone, improved upon the twin tube design by obtaining a patent for the monotube shock absorber that eliminated the two nested tubes and allowed for an external coil spring. As the name implies, the monotube consists of a single pressure tube and generally contains two separate pistons. One is the working piston attached to the damper rod, and the floating piston that works to separate the shock's gas and fluid. The decarbone design allows for a much higher gas pressure to more efficiently and more quickly respond to severe conditions that you'd find on a motocross track. In 1954, Decarbone first sold the design patent rights to a German company called Bilstein, which quickly became one of the world's premier and high-performance gas shock absorbers for off-road cars and rally cars. Decarbone also had his own company that was required completely by an Irish-based auto component supplier, Delphi, in 1977. The Decarbone division of BWI still produces monotube shock absorbers to the automotive and motorcycle industry, primarily in Europe. Ironically, Yamaha's original monoshock design, the one with the accumulator, as well as the most other dual shock designs, were all based on Decarbone's original monotube concept. So it was probably more of a marketing gimmick than anything else back in the late 70s. By 1980, Yamaha dropped Decarbone from the marketing literature, but still referenced the name in their service manuals, but now simply called the single shock system, the MOTOCROSS suspension. Boussier Decarbone died in France in 1995, a few weeks before his 83rd birthday. He spent his professional life improving and operating suspension systems found on cars, trucks, motorcycles, and even airplanes. Anyone that has ridden a motocross bike in the past 50 years can still recognize the contributions and remember his legacy. Thank you, Jeff Koski. I never knew Decarbone was a French name. I just thought it was Decarbon, like many, many other people there. I didn't know anything about that and the history of that shock absorber, which we all called the monoshock and then the monocross system. But Jeff Kokoski, great job on putting that together for us. There, of course, is Hakan Anderson with his World Championship 1973 Yamaha YZ, and it was not called an OW until 1974. So a little more history for you right there. The Decarbone monocross suspension. Thanks, Jeff. Let's break for a commercial while I go on oxygen. Don't forget to visit the International Motocross Museum at internationalmotocrossmuseum.org. They've got shirts, hats, t-shirts, posters. They've got a lot of cool stuff over there at the International Motocross Museum. And now it is time once again for me to expand your vast knowledge in the motorcycle world with our next segment of Ever Heard Of? Ever heard of a roomie? R-U-M-I? Roomie? Sounds like some kind of a mantra, roomie, whatever it is. Anyway, enough about that. The Roomie organization was formed at the beginning of the 12th century. The 20th century, and originally supplied cast components to textile machine industries. The outbreak of World War II, Rumi became involved in the manufacturing of armaments, miniature submarines, and torpedoes. At the end of the war in 1950, Rumi decided to get involved in manufacturing of lightweight motorcycles. It was also decided to base the power plant on a horizontal twin two-stroke unit of 125 cc's. In 1952, with the popularity of scooters, Rumi started manufacturing the Squirrel, a cast aluminum Monaco body, tubular single swing arm rear suspension and teleforks with 14-inch wheels and 3 gears. Subsequent models had a 4-speed gearbox and electric starter and were reputed to be the fastest little scooters in production at that time. In 1954, it brought the production of the Formicino, the little ant scooter, and it won the Italian National Championship in 1954. The entire body, with the exception of the front forks, crash rails, and leg shields, was produced in cast aluminum with the front and rear casting bolted to the engine to form a Monaco, which resulted in a light, rigid construction. In 57 and 58 and 60, Rumi won the famous Bol d'Or 24-hour race in Montlhéry in France. Subsequently, Rumi produced the Bol d'Or scooter named after that race. In the UK, it sported dropped handlebars, a chrome-plated aluminum cylinder, twin carburetors, but the French version favored the Belle d'Or with a single 22-millimeter carburetor. It built some really cool bikes and really broke some records. Anyway, during the 60s, Rumi went into liquidation, and Domino Rumi went back to being a sculptor and an artist. It's really amazing because I think a lot of his sculpting and artistry do come through in the building of his motorcycles. But yeah, a really, really interesting story about Domino Rumi and how he went from being a sculptor and artist into building some championship motorcycles and back to being an artist and a sculptor again. Not a bad deal. We're going to take a commercial break. Don't forget to keep sharing the show. Although we already given our random share giveaway prize out tonight, we're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
VINTCO, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with VINTCO rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The VINTCO air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit VINTCO.com to check out the air shocks and all that VINTCO has to offer to help you get back on track and to keep that ride going.
This Week in Motocross History is brought to you by Racer X Magazine, available online and on your newsstand now. Racer X, be sure to see our ad in the back of every issue. This Week in Motocross History. 1985, Kawasaki and the Bomber. This is something else I didn't really know. Mark Burnett scored his one and only professional victory aboard a Kawasaki when he went 2-2 to take the win at the Atlanta Supercross at its old venue, Fulton County Stadium. The Bomber had spent his entire career at that point on Suzuki, and with the yellow brand, he had claimed 3 AMA 125 National Motocross Championships, as well as the 1981 AMA Supercross title. Honda's Ron Lechien and Barnett's Kawasaki teammate Jeff Ward finished 2nd and 3rd that night. The moto winners in Atlanta were Ron Lechien, who went 1-4, and Yamaha's Brock Glover, who went 10-1. I didn't know that Mark Barnett ever rode for Kawasaki. I also had to think really hard to remember if he had won a Supercross title. But there you have it. 1989, Stanton's first time. After watching his Honda teammate and captain Rick Johnson win the first 5 rounds of the 1989 AMA Supercross Championship, Jeff Stanton got the first win of his professional career at that very same stadium that we talked about with Mark Barnett just a moment ago, Atlanta's Fulton County Stadium. After RJ and Guy Cooper make mistakes in the main event, Cooper's had a spectacular crash. Stanton will go on to win 3 AMA Supercross titles and 3 AMA 250 Pro Motocross Championships in the next 4 years. And that's why they call him 6-time Jeff Stanton. 1991, Damon dominates. I love this picture of Damon Bradshaw. Anyway, the Beast from the East, Damon Bradshaw, got a popular win in the Southeast when he won the Atlanta Supercross, stopping the series domination to that point of Honda riders Jeff Stanton and Jean-Michel Bale, who had split the first 5 wins of the 1991 AMA Camel Supercross Series. Jean-Michel Bale and Stanton did, however, finish second and third to keep their battle for the points lead going. This race marked the next to last in Atlanta Fulton Stadium, which first hosted the AMA Supercross in 1977. Very interesting. A lot of history about the Atlanta Supercross and the stadium there at Fulton County. And that wraps it up for this week in motocross history. We've got some announcements. Jordan, what do we have coming up first? Oh, the Can-Am 50th Festival is coming up. That is happening August 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th in 2023. That will be where, Susie? That's right, Gopher Dunes in Ontario, Canada. I will be there. I will be hosting and emceeing for all 4 days. I cannot wait to get up to Canada for the Can-Am event. And the great thing about it is Jimmy Ellis is going to be there. There's a picture of Jimmy Ellis right there, who was Supercross champion. His name is synonymous with the Can-Am mark. And anybody that has anything to do with Can-Am will be there for those four days. You will see every model Can-Am ever made and probably a lot that you never even knew about. Make your plans early, get your passports ready, figure out where you're going to stay, because it'll be here before you know it. Can-Am's 50th Festival. Finish Line tonight is brought to you by our new sponsor, ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. They do have a website. You could visit them right after you watch this show tonight. They've even got a little bit of a special going on this week. And here it is right here. They've got a 1978 through 1980 Honda CR250 rubber chain slide. This replaces the Honda part number 52170-43000. You didn't need to know the part number. Sometimes I just ramble. Anyway, if you're restoring a bike or you race one of these Red Rockets, 78 through 80, get over to ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. Get one of these for your bike. It's only $40, and it comes with the correct screws that go along with your original bike. If you don't have them, well, you'll get them from Replica Motorcycle Parts. Thank you, Paul Parkinson. Looking forward to having a lot more of your products on the show. If you need a t-shirt or a hoodie, they're still available, just $19.99. Follow the link in the show description. You get a hoodie for a couple of bucks more. They come in gray and white. Vintage Motocross Q&A sponsorship opportunities are still available. Why not jump up on the board and reach 20,000 people a week? You know what? I'm going to put a post tomorrow. I get that those posts that show how many people we hit a week for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. I saw one today that said we reached over 100,000 people in the past 90 days. You want to get a piece of that action? Get a hold of me. I'll get you a sponsorship opportunity application or sponsorship proposal package, rather. Okay? Special thanks to my friend Sunrise Vapor Blasting, Mark Ferriester. I sent out some parts to him last week. He sent them back, so I want to give Mark a little plug. Don't forget, Sunrise Vapor Blasting, Modesto, California. 1-day turnaround time, exceptionally reasonable prices. Big discount, 20% at Motion Pro. Don't forget the clock at Preston Petty Products, the special at Full Circle, and of course, VINTCO. Keep the ride going. That wraps it up for this edition of Vintage Motocross Q&A. I'm Joe Abadi. Thanks for tuning in. Gino! Come on, boy. There he is, Gino, on the scene. You never get Rocco. Huh? Maybe Mom could get Rocco. Could bring the Rocco. Okay? All right, Gino? Okay. You go get Rocco now. Go get him. Oh.
Huh? Yeah.
Thank you, Jordan, if you can still hear me. Jordan, can you still hear me?
Yeah. Just letting the song play out.